And for those of you Snyder haters, so-called real DC fans, I love your comments, so keep them coming. And for
So, as the Snyder cultists deal with the Snyderverse being dead, I came across an article saying why Zack Snyder was the worst thing to happen to DC. Now, this comes from Giant Freaking Robot, which is a news site that I utterly despise. But let's take a look back and let's see if I agree or disagree overall. In what was likely a desperation bid to keep subscribers, Max eventually caved into fan demand and released Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League. And even the most jaded fans had to admit that it was leagues better than Joss Whedon's theatrical cut. I think we can all agree. People with common sense, even Stevie Wonder could agree that Zack Snyder's cut was far superior than anything we got back in 2017. However, this led to some historical revisionism as Snyder loyalists, or Snyder cultists, insisted that if the studio hadn't interfered with the director's vision, the DCEU wouldn't have been such a total failure. But here's a hard fact that DC nerds will have to make peace with sooner or later. Zack Snyder was the single worst thing to happen to DC. I disagree. One reason that Zack Snyder has been so bad for DC is that the director who became a household name after the success of movies like 300, masterpiece, King Leonidas, and Watchmen, another masterpiece. Notoriously, nobody cares about common people, preferring instead to focus on larger-than-life heroes and villains. That sounds like it would be good fit for the superhero medium, but it's not. Many fans were rightfully horrified at the rampant destruction of Metropolis and Man of Steel. I wasn't horrified. Who was horrified? Come on, it's a movie. And they wondered why Superman did not care about all the people he was helping to hurt or kill. What are you talking about, my guy? Superman was helping the best he could. Remember, he was fighting someone who was at the same power levels as him. And he's been Superman for 5 minutes? I would agree with this statement if Henry Cavill was already established as Superman for years. For years. He was the big blue Boy Scout. He was established. He was Superman. But he was Superman in this movie for 5 minutes. He was literally discovering himself throughout the whole 2 hours of the movie. So I disagree with that statement. But the truth is quite bleak. Superman did not care about the humans dying because Snyder did not care, as he just wanted a story of two superhuman titans slugging it out. It makes for a good spectacle, which it was, of course, but Zack Snyder's Superman doesn't seem to care all that much for the very people he is meant to save. I completely disagree. That S might mean hope back on Krypton, but in Snyder's DC universe, all citizens of Metropolis can hope for is that their savior does not knock a building on top of them as he throws one careless punch after another. But again, he took the fight to outer space with Zod. Remember in Man of Steel? But guess what Zod did? Zod brought the fight back to the city, back to a populace where Superman cares about everyone. Why? Because Zod realized and says in the movie, I'm going to take everything away from you here. I'm going to kill every single human being. That was the whole point. That's why Superman had to kill Zod. And by the way, Henry Cavill was screaming in agony, knowing that he had to kill someone, but also had to kill the last race of his kind. Come on now. To his credit, Zack Snyder incorporated some of the criticisms he received from DC fans when making Batman v Superman, turning Superman's reckless battle into the driving force behind Batman's hatred for the alien savior. But the director seemingly doubled down on his weird portrayal of Superman. This is a character that told Batman to consider this mercy after he asked the Caped Crusader to hang up the cape and cowl, implying that the choice is not simply kill or maim Batman, meant that Superman was doing this frail human a favor. Well, to be fair though, Henry Cavill's Superman thought that Batman was just like a straight up killer, which in this interpretation he kinda was, and he thought that he was branding people, which Batman really was. But again, that was just a threat. It wasn't like Superman was actually going to maim or kill Batman, because if he did, guess what? He would have done it. Let's see, and if Superman's portrayal in Batman v Superman is bad, Zack Snyder's Batman is much, much worse, which is a shame, as Ben Affleck is one of the better actors to bring this iconic DC hero to life. Ben Affleck is the best Batman. Take whatever you know about Batman, like that he hates guns and killing, for instance. Okay, and you can count on this film to subvert your expectations in the worst possible way. But again, you have to remember, Zack Snyder is doing Frank Miller's interpretation of Batman, an older, jaded war veteran, a guy who just completely lost faith in himself and humanity and just wants to take brutal action upon criminals. Because in Batman v Superman, Bruce Wayne feels that in those 20 years as being the Cape Crusader, he has done nothing, absolutely nothing, to cure Gotham from its illness, and the illness being crime and all that stuff. So he feels impotent being Batman. And that's why he takes it out in the worst possible way. Again, it was a journey that Ben Affleck's Batman was going through. Eventually, it's enough to make any honest fan ask why Zack Snyder was ever chosen as an early architect of the DCEU, especially since he seemingly has a poor grasp of these famous characters. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think Zack Snyder understands the visual iconography of these characters. Do I think he completely understands the essence of these characters? That's up for debate. I think we can make an argument for that. But overall, I think he, for the most part, understands what people like about these characters. In my opinion, anyway. So, I don't know. I could be dead wrong. But, again, Zack Snyder himself said, yeah, I never read a comic book on a daily basis. Like, all I read was Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns, which was his favorite comic. So take that for what you will.
When you see the movie, it's very much loyal to the canon. Really, I was strict with the canon. The studio, of course, is a little less. They were a little less like, why? Why does it have to be Kansas? Why can't it be Chicago?
It's also clear that Zack Snyder had a weird vision for the future of his DC movies that he kept shoving into his films, even at the expense of a coherent narrative. For example, he was fixated on showing us a bleak future, the nightmare sequence, which was awesome, of a world where Superman, after Lois Lane's death, becomes a global tyrant. Well, it's sort of like Injustice. I feel like he was taking the source material from Injustice, which, by the way, Injustice, that whole series, fucking amazing. The animated movie, disgusting. that animated movie was terrible. Snyder seems so fascinated by the idea of an evil Superman that we wonder if all the bad characterization was meant to lead up to this dark future. Again, bad characterization, that's up for debate. I don't think it was. I think it was just, or Zack Snyder was trying to showcase Superman's journey. The problem was Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers threw in so much shit that it completely overshadowed and sidelined Henry Cavill's portrayal, which again, if you wanted to take this journey, then do a trilogy. Do a trilogy. Like, why shoehorn all this shit? I just didn't get it. I just didn't get that. That future is a cool idea on paper, but Zack Snyder had no way of organically setting this up. I agree with that, leading to bizarre moments like Future Flash visiting present-day Batman in a dream. Accordingly, it was tough for fans to get hyped about what might happen several movies down the line when they could barely understand what was happening in the current film. Okay, that I agree with. And Snyder even kept an extended look at this nightmare future in his Justice League cut, bizarrely giving DC fans a setup for sequels that were never going to happen. Yeah, but again, I look at that as Zack Snyder saying goodbye to his universe because he knew that it was never going to happen anyway. Ultimately, Zack Snyder's biggest curse is that he wants to develop original IP and characters, yet made a major name for himself by adapting films from other creators' work. The final result is that we have DC characters that act like nothing like their comic counterparts, and movies that lack the emotional resonance or even narrative cohesion of what came before. I can agree and disagree with that. I think some characters, like most notably Ezra Miller's Flash, is nothing like the Flash from the comic books. Unless you want to make him Wally West. If he's Wally West, okay. But Barry Allen from the comics does not act like Ezra Miller at all. At all. So I agree with that. Henry Cavill's Superman, I believe that's Superman. Ben Affleck's Batman, again, that Batman is Frank Miller's Batman. Wonder Woman is Wonder Woman from the comics. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman is the exact portrayal from the comic books. So, I don't know. The director was the worst thing to happen to DC films because he mishandled so much so comprehensively, leaving fans to hope that James Gunn's DCU reboot can finally do justice to these amazing characters. Interesting article. Again, I agree and disagree with some of what this writer said. I agree that BVS was way too convoluted. I agree that Henry Cavill was completely sidelined in his own quote-unquote trilogy. I agree with that. I don't agree with Ben Affleck's Batman because, again, Ben Affleck's Batman was the exact representation of Frank Miller's Batman. But I do think, overall, the DCEU was not handled well. I don't think Zack Snyder is fully to blame. I think Warner Brothers are not fully to blame. Like I said before, it's a combination. It's a combination of Zack Snyder's take on these DC characters that people did not like at all. And it's a incompetent issue when it comes to Warner Brothers because, again, these executives over at Warner Brothers completely do not understand these characters at all. At all. Which, again, just drives me insane because these people own the rights to these amazing characters and they know nothing about them. They know nothing about them. So I think the DCEU overall, from start to finish, was just a blunder. It was just a blunder, which is a shame because you had so many amazing actors behind the camera and in front of the camera, and it just goes to show how a lack of leadership and a lack of fundamental understanding or misunderstanding of these characters and what the general audience wants can lead to the downfall of a cinematic universe. And hopefully James Gunn can rectify what Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers could not do in the first place. Love you all. Stay safe. Hit like, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, TikTok, your sister's ass. And let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of this article? Again, as a Zack Snyder fan, I agree and disagree with some of it. Because you got to criticize. If you love something, you got to criticize it. If something doesn't work, you have to be realistic, assess the situation and be like, okay, take your bias out of it and say, I agree with this, I don't agree with that. But overall, yeah, it was just, it's a shame that it didn't work. Truth out.
Seth Rollins, I'm coming for you, boy. And I'm coming hard.